Let's go back to the graph. Here you see 2 bullet points. This is what we call the determinants of supply and demand. Now, the video and your book have a couple more of determinants that we're going to include in this video. You might remember them as tastes and preferences, you also had the price level. Remember that we're talking about dollars, so it's the price level in the US. The video also included income, and we had interest rates, interest differentials, meaning that there's differences between, in this example, between the interest rates in the US and the interest rates in Japan. And we're gonna add one here from this video, future exchange rates. Remember that from your readings, you talked about speculating in foreign exchange markets. This is why we have exchange houses, because you can actually make some money out of these. If you think the peso, or in this case the yen, is gonna appreciate, it might be useful for you to buy yen. One common application that we're seeing in today's age is cryptocurrencies. There's a lot of people that think that, for example, Bitcoin might go up to $1 million per coin. And so there's a lot of people right now buying up Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies because they're speculating on future values. So this is the same idea that we're seeing here. Okay, you can speculate on what's going to happen to the peso, to the yen, to the euro, and see if you can make a little bit of money. And so we have these. Now, here we have a slight differences in each of these. So for example, these 3 that I just wrote in are considered just single shifts, meaning that you're only going to shift one curve. However, with these 2, there's going to be 2 shifts involved. Let's go ahead and take these determinants of supply and demand and apply them to what we saw from the video. You might remember that the video had 4 examples, and we have them right here. And it actually gave you explanation on what's going to happen to the dollar in this case. Let's talk about these examples. Remember that we're talking about the US dollar. So let's go ahead and practice what we talked about with the axis and see if we can label it. So since we're talking about dollars, the dollar is going to be right there in the bottom. So I'm going to write USD for US dollars. And we're talking about Europe, so we're going to write euro on the top. And the x-axis is going to be quantity of US dollars. And then my supply and demand are pretty straightforward. You have my supply, and you have your demand. It's not really important that we're super accurate with values. We're just going to see if the US dollar is going to appreciate or depreciate. Let's go ahead and label our graph so we remember what we're talking about. And let's label our equilibrium so we know our starting position. That's equilibrium number 1. Okay, so as the video was talking about, Europeans travel more to the US. Okay, this means that for some reason there's more of a taste for dollars, if you want to call it like that. There's a lot of people that want to go to the US, so people want more dollars. So that has to do with demand. And this one falls into tastes. For some reason, people are changing their travel habits, and of course when you come to the US you have to have dollars to pay for stuff. So that means that the demand for dollars is gonna go up. Let's practice our supply and demand rules. If it's an increase in demand, what we're gonna see is a shift to the right. doesn't matter how far you shift it, just a rightward shift should show you what's going to happen. Notice that my new equilibrium is right here, and therefore I know that my exchange rate went up. Okay, let's put some numbers here as examples so that you can see it. Let's say the exchange rate was 1 for 1. So 1 euro would give you $1. This is not correct, but for simplicity, let's keep it with whole numbers. And now with this new shift in demand, it's going to increase, let's say, to 1.25 euros. So what does this mean? Let's put it into words. That now it takes 1.25 euros to buy $1. Before, it would take 1 euro to buy $1. Now it takes 1.25 euros to buy $1. So what happened in the exchange rate? It means that the dollar appreciated. It is now more valuable when you compare it to the euro. The dollar appreciated compared to the euro. Let's practice the other examples. The second example has to do with income levels because now there's a recession in Europe. Well, remember that economies are interrelated. So if there's something bad going on in Europe, we're gonna feel it here too. So in this case, since Europeans cannot come here because the income levels are decreasing in Europe, right? They're not gonna be able to buy our exports. We say that demand for the dollar is going to decrease. So what's going to happen in this graph? Well, kind of the opposite of what we talked about before. Now we're going to have a decrease in demand. A new equilibrium is going to be here. And you can see that the exchange rate went down. This means that there is a depreciation. So let's put numbers to that so you can see what happens in terms of numbers. Again, let's simplify. We know that this is not the case, but it helps us understand what happens with exchange rates. Let's say that before 1 euro would get you $1. Now it went down. Let's say that it's now 75 euro cents would give you $1. The dollar is now cheaper in terms of the euro. Therefore, the dollar depreciated. Notice that in examples 1 and number 2, and even number 3, which I'll let you do on your own, there was only single shifts. Let's go into example number 4 and see how double shifts work in the market for dollars. So again, example number 4 has to do with the interest rates. Differentials. We talked about it in the graph above. So there's relatively higher interest rates in the US. So this is something that we talked about when we were modeling the financial account, right? Meaning that there's going to be a flow of euros and a flow of dollars, right? People from Europe are going to want to invest in US assets. That means that they're going to have to demand more dollars. The demand for dollars is going to increase from Europeans, and since US assets are giving very good returns, Americans, the suppliers, are going to reduce the amount of dollars that they put on the foreign exchange market. So my supply is going to decrease. So let's go ahead and draw that in. Where is my new equilibrium? Well, it's in the intersection of the two red lines. So let's go ahead and label it right here. This is my second equilibrium. Now this goes back to something we learned about with supply and demand. When we have double shifts, there's only one variable that we know is going to change, right? And so these are opposites. These are opposites, right? So we know that when we have opposite shifts, that means that demand and supply are going in different directions. The only thing we know is what happens to price. Quantity is indeterminate, and for the purposes of this analysis, we don't really need to know what's going to happen to the quantity of US dollars in the market for dollars. We just want to know what's going to happen to the exchange rate. And I told you that when you have two different shifts, always follow demand. So let's take a look. If there's two shifts, demand is going up, supply is going down. The only thing we know for sure is that my dollar is going to appreciate. That's the first exchange rate. This is the second exchange rate. We know that it's going up. So we know for sure that the dollar is going to be more expensive, that it appreciated. You will require more euros to get one single dollar. This, in a nutshell, is the market for currencies, right? It works very similarly to what we've seen before in supply and demand. We actually use the same rules. Increases, you shift to the right. Decreases, you shift to the left. Double shifting, right? We only have one variable. We only care about the exchange rate for now. We're gonna leave it at that for now, okay? So remember, if the exchange rate goes up, it means that the currency that you're looking at appreciated. If the exchange rate goes down, it means that the currency you're looking at is depreciating. That sums up today's lesson.